The old Honda Civic creaked as Marcus shifted in the driver's seat, trying to find a position that wouldn't leave his back aching when morning came. Through the fogged windows, the neon sign of Murphy's Diner cast red and blue shadows across his 80-year-old daughter's sleeping face. Emma clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, her breathing soft and steady despite the cramped quarters they now called home. 3 months. 3 months since the factory closed and their world collapsed like a house of cards. Marcus ran his calloused hand through his beard, watching the late-night truckers come and go from the diner. Each one represented a life he used to have, a normalcy that felt as distant as the stars barely visible through the city's glow. Before we dive into this story, drop a comment and let us know what state you're watching from. Maybe situations like this happen in your community too. Emma stirred, her small hand reaching across the center console. Even in sleep, she sought the comfort of knowing her father was there. Marcus gently took her hand, his heart breaking and swelling simultaneously. Tomorrow would bring another day of job hunting, another day of pretending everything was fine for her sake, another day of hoping something would change. The morning sun filtered through the diner's parking lot as Marcus helped Emma wash her face with bottled water and wet wipes. She never complained, never asked why they couldn't go home. At 8 years old, she possessed a resilience that both amazed and heartbroke him. After sharing a single breakfast sandwich from the diner's dollar menu, they walked toward the small playground behind the building where Emma could stretch her legs. That's when Marcus spotted it, partially hidden under a rusted pickup truck. A leather backpack, expensive-looking and definitely not belonging to anyone who'd leave in a place like this. Marcus glanced around the empty lot before kneeling down to retrieve it. The weight surprised him. Inside, his breath caught. A thick wallet stuffed with bills, at least $300 visible. Gold jewelry that looked real. Important documents, and what appeared to be medication. Emma watched him examine the contents, her young eyes curious. This money could buy them food for weeks, maybe even a cheap motel room. His fingers trembled as he held the wallet, feeling the weight of temptation and desperation colliding. But then Emma's innocent gaze met his, and Marcus knew what he had to do. Some things mattered more than money. Marcus studied the driver's license through the plastic window of the wallet. Jake Morrison, 34 years old, with an address across town in the industrial district. The photo showed a bearded man with intense eyes and what looked like tattoos creeping up his neck. Emma sat quietly in the passenger seat as Marcus drove their battered Honda through unfamiliar streets, following directions he'd gotten from a gas station attendant. The neighborhood grew rougher with each turn, warehouses and auto shops replacing the suburban landscape they'd left behind. Morrison's motorcycle repair sat at the end of a dead-end street, its metal siding painted black with flames along the bottom. Half a dozen motorcycles gleamed in the afternoon sun, their chrome reflecting like mirrors. The sound of classic rock drifted from the open bay doors, mixing with the metallic clang of tools on metal. Marcus parked across the street, his hands gripping the steering wheel. These weren't his people. He'd always been the quiet factory worker, the guy who minded his own business and stayed out of trouble. But Emma was watching him, trusting him to do what was right. Taking a deep breath, Marcus tucked the backpack under his arm and stepped out of the car, leaving Emma safely inside with the doors locked. The music cut off abruptly as Marcus stepped into the garage bay. 3 men in leather vests looked up from their work, grease-stained hands pausing mid-motion. The largest of them, matching the photo on the license, emerged from behind a Harley-Davidson, wiping his hands on a dirty rag. Jake Morrison stood 6 feet tall, with arms covered in intricate tattoos and eyes that seemed to catalog every detail about Marcus in seconds. His expression shifted from curiosity to suspicion as he took in Marcus's worn clothes and nervous demeanor. "Is there something I can help you with?" Jake asked, his voice carrying the weight of someone used to handling unwelcome visitors. Marcus cleared his throat, extending the leather backpack. "I believe this belongs to you. Found it in Murphy's Diner parking lot this morning." Jake's eyebrows lifted slightly as he recognized his property. He opened it slowly, checking the contents while his two companions watched the exchange with interest. The wallet, the jewelry, the medication, everything was there untouched. "You could have kept this," Jake said quietly, studying Marcus with new interest. Nobody would have known. Marcus met his gaze steadily. "My daughter was watching. Some lessons are more important than money." Jake's weathered face softened as he gestured toward a couple of metal folding chairs near his workbench. "Sit for a minute. What's your name?" Marcus hesitated, glancing toward his car, where Emma waited patiently. "Marcus. And that's my daughter Emma in the Honda." Jake followed his gaze, spotting the small face pressed against the passenger window. "She's a beautiful kid. How old?" "8," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion he tried to suppress. Jake studied Marcus more carefully, taking in the worn shoes, the careful way he held himself, the shadows under his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. "You guys doing all right?" The simple question nearly broke Marcus's composure. He'd been holding everything together for so long that genuine concern from a stranger felt overwhelming. "We're between situations right now," he managed. Jake nodded slowly, understanding more than Marcus had said. "Lost my job 3 months ago when a factory closed. Been living in the car since we couldn't make rent." The garage fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic. Jake's companions had stopped their work entirely, listening to this unexpected story unfolding in their sanctuary of chrome and steel. That evening, Jake's motorcycle club gathered at their usual spot, the Iron Horse Tavern on the outskirts of town. The worn wooden tables had witnessed countless brotherhood meetings, but tonight felt different as Jake shared Marcus's story with his riding family. Tommy, the club sergeant-at-arms, leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. "Man returns a bag with that much cash when he's sleeping in his car with his kid? That takes real character." Big Mike, whose massive frame belied his gentle heart, nodded thoughtfully. "I remember being down and out after my accident. Nobody gave me a chance until you guys did." Jake took a long pull from his beer, watching the faces around the table. These men knew struggle. Half of them had been written off by society at some point, finding brotherhood and purpose in their riding family when the world had turned its back. Sarah, the club's only female member and a nurse at the local hospital, spoke quietly. "What kind of example are we setting if we just walk away from this? A man shows that kind of integrity, and we just say thanks and goodbye." The room fell silent as each member contemplated her words. These weren't just weekend riders. They were a family bound by loyalty and shared values. Over the next few days, the motorcycle club conducted their own quiet investigation. Sarah used her connections at the hospital to verify Marcus's story. Tommy, who worked part-time at the unemployment office, confirmed the factory closure had displaced hundreds of workers with little warning or severance. Jake made discreet inquiries around town, learning that Marcus had been a skilled mechanic at the factory, well respected by his supervisors and co-workers. His wife had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, leaving him to raise Emma alone while managing crushing medical debt from her treatment. The picture that emerged wasn't of someone looking for a handout, but of a man who'd been systematically knocked down by circumstances beyond his control. Yet through it all, he'd maintained his integrity and put his daughter's needs above his own comfort. Big Mike discovered that Marcus had been quietly volunteering at a local food bank, even while homeless, helping distribute meals to other families in need. The irony wasn't lost on any of them that he was giving away food while his own family went hungry. By week's end, the club had made their decision. This wasn't charity, it was recognition of character that deserved support from people who understood what it meant to be counted out. The plan came together with military precision. Each club member contributed what they could, from cash to connections. Sarah coordinated with local businesses who'd heard Marcus's story, finding unexpected generosity from shop owners and restaurant managers who remembered what it felt like to struggle. Jake reached out to his network of mechanics across 3 counties, discovering that Morrison Cycle wasn't the only shop needing skilled hands. A chopper restoration business 2 towns over had been looking for an experienced mechanic for months. Tommy's wife worked at the bus station and quietly arranged for tickets to Marcus's hometown, where his sister lived. She'd been begging him to come stay with them, but pride had kept him from accepting help even from family. Big Mike, who moonlighted as a freelance photographer, documented everything they were putting together, not for publicity, but because he understood that Emma would want to remember this moment when she grew up, to know that strangers cared enough to change their trajectory. The original leather backpack sat on Jake's workbench, now serving a different purpose entirely. Instead of returning lost property, it would carry hope, opportunity, and the collective heart of 90 people who believed that integrity deserved recognition in a world that often ignored it. Jake found Marcus at Murphy's Diner 3 days later, sharing a cup of coffee with Emma while she colored on napkins. The worn booth creaked as Jake slid in across from them, his presence commanding attention from other patrons. "I've got a proposition for you," Jake said without preamble. "My shop needs an experienced mechanic. Pays fair, hours are steady, and there's a small apartment above the garage if you're interested." Marcus stared at him, the coffee growing cold in his hands. "Jake, I appreciate the thought, but I don't have tools anymore. Had to sell them when we lost the apartment. And look at me, I don't exactly have interview clothes." Emma looked up from her coloring, sensing the importance of the conversation, even if she didn't understand all the words. Her small hand reached across the table to touch her father's arm, offering silent support. Jake smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "Tools can be replaced. Clothes can be bought. Character like yours, that's something you either have or you don't. And brother, you've proven you have it in spades." Marcus's eyes filled with tears he couldn't hide. "What would you need an answer?" "How about we start Monday morning and see how it goes?" Jake replied, standing to leave. "Bring Emma by the shop this weekend. I think she'd like to meet the crew." Monday morning arrived with unexpected fanfare. As Marcus pulled his Honda into the shop's parking lot, he noticed something unusual. Motorcycles lined both sides of the street, their chrome gleaming in the early sunlight. Dozens of them, more than he'd ever seen in one place. Emma pressed her face to the window, counting the bikes with wide-eyed wonder. "Daddy, why are there so many motorcycles?" Marcus had no answer. His hands trembled slightly as he helped Emma out of the car, both of them walking slowly toward the garage where Jake waited with a broad smile. The shop bay doors opened wide, revealing not just Jake's usual crew, but what seemed like an army of leather-clad bikers. Men and women of all ages, some with gray beards and weathered faces, others young with bright eyes and eager expressions. All of them watching Marcus with something between respect and anticipation. Jake stepped forward, holding the familiar leather backpack. "Marcus, I'd like you to meet some friends. When word got around about what you did, about the kind of man you are, well, let's just say a lot of people wanted to be here today." 90 club members from across 3 states had made the journey, each one representing a different chapter of the extended motorcycle family that believed in taking care of their own. Jake opened the backpack with ceremonial reverence, revealing its transformed contents. $5,000 in cash, carefully counted and contributed by every member present. Bus tickets to Marcus's hometown, where his sister waited with open arms. A handwritten letter of recommendation for a master mechanic position at a premium restoration shop. Marcus stared at the contents, his composure finally cracking. His knees buckled slightly as the weight of their generosity hit him. Emma watched her father with concern, not understanding why the strong man who'd protected her through everything was suddenly crying. "This isn't charity," Jake said firmly, his voice carrying across the silent crowd. "This is what happens when good people recognize character. You showed integrity when you had every reason not to. That deserves recognition." A woman stepped forward from the crowd, Sarah, her nurse's uniform visible beneath her leather jacket. "Your daughter needs to see that doing the right thing matters," she said gently. "That there are still people in this world who notice and care." Marcus pulled Emma close, his voice breaking as he spoke. "I don't know what to say. I don't know how to thank you all." Big Mike's deep voice rumbled from the back. "You already did, brother. You showed us what honor looks like when nobody's watching." 6 months later, Marcus stood in his sister's backyard watching Emma play on the swing set they'd built together. The restoration shop had not only hired him, but promoted him to head mechanic within 3 months. Emma attended the local elementary school, where she'd quickly made friends and joined the art club. The apartment they rented was small but comfortable, filled with Emma's drawings and the smell of home-cooked meals. On the kitchen counter sat a framed photo from that remarkable day at Morrison Cycle. 90 bikers surrounding Marcus and Emma like an extended family they'd never expected to find. Jay called every few weeks, checking in and sharing news from the shop. The motorcycle community had embraced them both, with Emma receiving birthday card from across 3 states and Marcus invited to their annual charity rides. But perhaps the most meaningful change was how Marcus had begun volunteering at the local homeless shelter, sharing his story and helping other families navigate their darkest hours. He'd learned that kindness was a circle meant to be passed forward rather than simply received. If this story touched your heart, please drop a comment and let us know your favorite part, or if you've witnessed similar acts of unexpected kindness in your own community. Sometimes the most powerful moments happen when we choose to see the good in each other.